Welcome back, Rumon.
Hi, thank you.
All right. I'm just going to remind you, we're going to continue talking about relational leadership. Mhm. And last time we started this topic, uh, and we talked about one rule for relational leadership, right? That I, she, we are right, but only partially.
Yeah.
Along with that, you kind of gave us a foundation. You gave us a couple of skills, and then you said, what's on top. Uh, we talked about a little bit about the foundation last time, right? And our foundation was interdependence, that we are all equally important. I'd now like to come into the pillars part of it, the skills. And the first skill that you had called out last time was listening. But what I really, really found interesting was listening to the change in the rhythm of the relationship. That's something different. That's something that I've not heard of. So tell me a little bit more about that, Rumon.
Yeah. Everything that we are talking about, we are like there are progressions into them. They're like we are growing into them. We are maturing into them. So it's not like we're stumbling. Sometimes we stumble into them as well. So when I talk about listening to the rhythms or changes in the rhythms of a relationship, uh, becoming aware that there are rhythms around us all the time. Yes, there are seasonal rhythms. The weather, there are weather rhythms. There are, of course, the everyday rhythm of day and night. Yeah, and we forget that sometimes. So there are rhythms all around us, and there are rhythms in our relationships as well. And because we are staying in a relationship, just like we are experiencing day and night, and we don't notice the rhythms of or when suddenly things have changed a little bit, the days have become longer, nights are becoming shorter, and vice versa. We don't consciously notice them. Similarly, when we stay in a relationship, we don't consciously notice how the relationship is changing. You will notice when we get into talking about the workplace, we get into a workplace and we have a certain nature, or we have a certain, I would say, frequency or certain vibration of how we relate to our new work environment, how we relate with our new boss. And then as we are staying there for some more time, that same vibration isn't present, the same nature isn't present. There's something there, the frequency has changed. How we are relating has shifted and changed, and we are most of the time not aware of those changes. And then there are everyday changes, and then there are every hour changes, and that's how changes go. Do we need to listen to every little change? So, when we are in a relationship, let's say when you get into a job, a new job, or a new workplace, we are relating differently in that workplace. We're relating differently with our new colleagues, with our new boss, and the vibration is different. How we are feeling is different. And as we stay in that workplace for some more time, our vibrations with our same colleagues who are same, with the same boss, with the same workplace, has changed. How we are feeling has changed, obviously, because we are now growing into that relationship. And most of the time, or many a time, just like we are living through our days, we don't notice how the rhythm of day and night is changing, because we're just living through it. We don't notice that how suddenly the days have become longer, and the nights are becoming shorter, and vice versa. We don't keep track of every little change. Similarly, in our relationships as well, it just happens. We don't keep track. So does that mean that we have to keep track of every little change and shift that is happening? That's not what I mean. What I mean by listening is being tuned in enough to know when the shifts, even those subtle shifts, are are important, are something that has weight, and something that we need to be aware of, and tuned in enough to know, oh, even those big shifts that need to be addressed right now. So tuning in or leaning into this relationship to be able to notice these kind of shifts. That's what I mean by listening to the changes in rhythm. And I'm going to pause here and see how this is landing with you.
I think there are two very different thoughts that come to mind, and also a dilemma. So let me start with the thought. So in December, I had the opportunity of my son visiting me for his winter break from his university. And you're right. I've seen him grow since he was really tiny. And he's just grown, and I don't think much has changed about him. I still think about him as my baby. But this time when he came back, I could see how he's changed. I could notice his hairstyle changing. I could see that his style of dressing has changed. So I could notice all those changes. So I get that.
Stay with that.
The dilemma, yeah.
Stay with that for a moment. So while you're noticing the physical changes, there is the relational changes also happened. How you're relating with him now would be different from how you were relating earlier, and you relate with him in the same way that you were relating with him earlier. There is obviously going to be some sort of friction. He is an adult now, and the nature of the relationship now needs to shift into more of that adult to adult. And sometimes we do that naturally, and sometimes we need to do that more with awareness. And last time we had talked about designing how we want to be with each other relationally. That also helps us bring in the healthy controls that we need. But we will be able to bring that in only if we are able to be aware, and if we know that the rhythm has changed, or the rhythm is changing.
Right. So Ruma, and here is the dilemma portion of it. If it's something as simple as physical traits, and those are changing, you know that there is a change. But when things are subtle, when they're important but subtle, right? You feel that they have changed, but you don't see them, right? You can't grasp them with your five senses. At that point in time, how do you know that the rhythm has changed?
And you kind of gave the answer yourself. You can't grasp that with five senses. And you also mentioned something around you feel something has changed. So these two things, so feeling and being very tuned in with our feelings, which most of us are actually asked to tune out because we need to be in control. So actually reorganizing that tuning in process where we have to be tuned into what we're feeling. And second is the intuition, which is really not one of these five senses, but these five senses can feed our intuition, but intuition at a level which our intuition is always saying things. Shahrukh, you would know that we always have, information, or we always receive some sort of guidance, which we don't know from where this information came from, but most of the time we put it aside. We don't know. It's not making sense, or it's too uncomfortable, or I'll look at this later, or data is not telling me that. So we put it aside. But then learning, and that's why I call it as a skill. It is a skill that can be built upon, and tuning in to that intuition, tuning in to our feelings. And that is the doorway in which we can actually start noticing these changes in rhythm. So one of the discussions that we had, I had mentioned about, when I work with systems, when I work with teams, when I work with large, number of people, it's not about me controlling the team or me controlling what is happening, but actually me tuning in to the changes in the rhythm, me tuning in to, oh, what just shifted. And this is the way that this, and going with the change is where the, I would say, wisdom lies, where the relational leadership takes over rather than the control leadership.
Right. Ruma, is there anything more that you want to add to the listening part of it?
Oh, there
Or
is.
do you think we want to move on to the next skill?
Yeah, there's a lot in listening, and it's a skill. It's to be developed. But I feel, the information as is right now, whatever we have shared in this conversation, let's let that sink in first.
All right. All right. Then let's get to the next skill. And my head's still thinking, or it's still on the listening part of it, but I'm going to move on.
Well,
The second skill,
shall we pause? Sorry, we're talking over each other. Shall we pause this then and then take on the
Sure.
second skill? Okay.
Sure.
All right, let's do that. Thank you, Shahrukh.
Thank you, Ruma.